guys, welcome back to another video and the first impressions of my new amplifier. This is not a sponsored video or anything. I have bought this amplifier and it's the Super Reverb Tonemaster. Now I just want to cover a couple of things of why this amplifier, and then throughout the video we'll get onto things like the cost, because that's kind of what's kept me away from this amp for so long, and you know, a couple of the features and things like that. But in a nutshell, the reason why this amp is in here, I wanted another amplifier, something to capture that blackface, you know, Fender sound that I could use at home, you know, for good volumes and everything else in conjunction with my Marshall. So I've kind of got the two flavors. And pretty much since this came out, so what, 2 years ago now, I've made multiple trips to guitar stores to go and try the different Tonemasters and other amps. One of which I filmed a few months ago. You might have seen it if you watch the channel. And the Super Reverb is just, time and time again, it's just been the one that I enjoy the most. And my friend actually bought one after the last video I just said, and so I've been playing that around his as well. And I've not one time have I plugged into it and not gone, that's got to be my next amp. And the only thing in the way is that price thing, which again we will get to later on. So the way I've got this thing set up in the house is that the DI on the back is constantly plugged into my computer, so for recording and stuff like that I can literally just turn it on and just, you know, no miking, no messing around or anything, and just get a signal to record and make videos or whatever I want to do. And then other than that, when the computer's off, obviously it just works as a normal amp as well. So I reckon before I carry on with anything else, I'm going to show you the very first time I plugged a Les Paul into the DI and the tones I got out of that. So let me show you that first, and then I'll come back and chat a bit more about this amp. And there's something a bit quirky with the DI that I've not heard anyone else say, so I'll demonstrate that as well. So I'll see you in a minute. So there you go then, that was the first time running the Les Paul through the DI and just playing it. And I gotta say, I think that DI sounds absolutely awesome. But there is something about it that I've not heard anyone else really say. And if the DI feature of this is your kind of main reason for buying it, I think this is something you should probably know. So it's going to be a bit tricky to explain, but basically you've got a DI level on the back, right? So at the moment, this is running DI on mute. The amber thing there means it's muted. And it's running into my speakers just over there, which are on really low, but the DI is cranked, so I get this kind of sound in the room through the camera mic. So, you know, that's no pedals, but the amp is on 7, so you're kind of getting into quite broken up territory now. So let's say I go, well, I want to still hear my amp, and I want that tone, but I want to hear my amp because, you know, I want a bit of sound in the room and I don't want to wear headphones, let's just say. Now, this amp is on its maximum attenuation right now, so 0.5 watt. But if I want to hear the DI sounding like that, and I want to hear the amp together, listen to what happens. Bear in mind, maximum attenuation. So I just flip that on. That is loud. I promise you, that's too loud for house, really. Now, I'm not sure how much of that will come across on the camera because of the compression and stuff, but I want that level on my DI, but I'd also quite like to hear the amp without the speakers and stuff over there. But now that's too loud. So really, I've only got the option of have the amp too loud, or go back to no sound from the amp at all, and then just control the volume of the DI from my speakers. So hopefully that kind of makes sense as to what I'm saying, because there is a DI level on the back, and you might think, well, just match them and then you should be able to use both and get the same tone. But the DI level control is more of a master volume for whatever's going on the front panel. So you still have to do that kind of old school thing of, if you want it cranked and you want the sound it makes when it's cranked, you have to crank the amp. And then even when the amp's maximum attenuation, it's still very, very loud. Now, obviously, you would get around this with pedals. And when I film it, you know, do the proper kind of review when I've got to know it a bit better, and we're focusing on just the amp as it is, that's what we'll be doing in that video. But definitely worth mentioning that thing about the DI, because like I said, I've not really heard anyone else mention how different they are, and they don't, you know, you kind of got one or the other, or you've got to be really loud in the room. So hopefully that makes sense. So I reckon now let's get on to some overall pros and cons, and then that'll be it for the video. Starting off with the pros is that, one, the weight. You know, I mean, I know everyone says that, but heavy amps, when you want to move them around the room, take them out to gigs and stuff, they are just a little bit, you know, it's a pain, isn't it? And this thing is so light, even with its proper speakers, which is another pro as well. You know, this thing has proper Jensen speakers, which is a bit of a thing with the other Tonemasters, that a lot of people kind of didn't get on with those Neo things, but you do have 4 proper speakers here, so that's another pro. For me, the looks of the amp is another massive pro. I mean, me sitting here with this like in the room, because it just looks like a super reverb, right? It gives off such a cool vibe, especially when you put the legs back and it's kind of tilted back. That's another pro, I would say. Couple of the cons, I suppose, even though this thing has the attenuation feature, which is great, but if you're not using pedals and you want a more cranked black face sound, like I explained in the DI thing, you are still going to be very, very loud. And it's a good job this thing takes pedals really well, because you're going to need pedals at home volumes using the amp to kind of explore a bit more kind of broken up tones, because otherwise you're still going to be way too loud. So that's a slight con, I suppose. But I think the biggest con with the amp, and what kept me away from the amp for so long, is definitely the price. You know, I can't sit and say that I think they're like the best value amps ever. I mean, if you take a Katana, for example, you know, an amp that I love, and I just think it's such a great value package, no matter what level you're at. I think it's just great. And even the most expensive katana, say like the Artist, is somewhere, you know, around just over half the price of this Super. And the other katanas are great too, and they're less than half the price. So to kind of get over that and see that it's worth the kind of money these are is tricky, and tricky to justify as well. And it took me a long time, but like I said at the start, every time I'd gone to guitar stores to try it, and my friend owning one, I just liked the sound of it every single time, and there wasn't anything other than the price not making me want it. And eventually it just came down to, you know, I took a load of stuff I had left over from the music store to kind of bring it down a bit, and that kind of got me into it. So you just kind of get to the point where you say the price is the price, you know, let's just go for it and deal with it later kind of thing. So, you know, other than that, I know I'm going to really enjoy using this amp. And once I've kind of got to know it a bit more, like I said, the next video will focus a lot more on the amp, you know, as an amp rather than the line out we've kind of looked at today. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me know if there's anything you want to know about this amp, and I will see you soon for another one.